Hi, it's Art, short for Artemy, and you can find me at CUArtist pretty much everywhere. I have been avoiding drawing some of the backgrounds in my comic because it's not taking place in the house, it's in the surrounding area of the house, and I did not know what that would look like yet. I kind of had a vague plan of I want there to be a lot of trees and hilly sort of situation, but I also do have a place in mind in the real world where their house is. So I definitely didn't want the landscape to just totally not make sense for that, and I was just not sure how I was going to find references for that. Once again, thank you to my partner for reminding me of things that I already knew, because I was complaining about this and they were like, use Google Maps. So the other day I did end up finally just sitting my butt down and going to the general region that I wanted their house to be in, and just kind of poking around in areas that were less populated, and I did end up finding, like, really good references for what I needed. So I just wanted to chat about that, because I think it is a useful resource. Especially if you have a comic more like mine where it has at least real-world counterparts to it. It can definitely be really, really useful to just use real life as a reference. I think it would definitely be harder to use if you have like a more high fantasy setting or just something that has no real-world counterparts at all. Especially in, like, if you're in, like, a big forest, you're not gonna get a Google Street View situation of that. But if you are doing something that is even in a world kind of similar to ours, you could pick a city or town that has a similar vibe to what you want, to just kind of get an idea of what the outdoors would look like. And that would give you a lot less work to do in set design. Keep in mind that it is all copyrighted, so that's not something you can just, like, trace and be fine with, to my knowledge. But it is really useful to just have that. And I've used it multiple times for various scenes that are outdoors in my comic. I just completely brain dead. I was like, what does the landscape in upstate New York look like? I don't know. And that is when my partner was like, look. But it was definitely helpful that I did look before I did too much showing of the outside of their house. I think I did in the first episode, but I'm just gonna kind of ignore that. It'll be fine. It is definitely not as hilly as I thought it would be, but I have lived in Alaska all of my life, so I am so very used to mountains. I just kind of take them for granted. It was just really fun to be looking through the places that looked like the right vibe, because I did end up finding some houses that I could, like, not really use as reference, I guess, but, like, just be like, oh yeah, that's the place that they would be. And I'm definitely not going to use the same street names and stuff, but it is funny when I'm like, oh, haha, one of the places had spring in the street name, and that's very appropriate for a place where the seasons incarnate live. Yeah. In fact, the inspiration for their current house was from me driving around my own town, and I saw, like, Summers Avenue or something, and was looking down, and there was just this big, beautiful, empty house, and I was like, ugh. It was, like, kind of falling apart, but I just was like, ooh, I want to go inside there so bad, but it is probably not safe, and also definitely would be trespassing. But then I went and looked it up on Google Maps and got kind of a vibe of the area around it, and, like, got a top-down view, and used that as the kind of inspiration for the house, because I hadn't looked at a lot of house design and architecture for a very long time. Alaska doesn't have a lot of good architecture because it's to survive the weather, so I really just didn't have an idea of what a house that was that big would look like. And it is, I don't know, it is definitely just kind of a behemoth, but it is kind of how that house looked, except for instead of it just wasn't a tree in the center of the house, it was just more house, and it wasn't perfectly round. So, yeah, I think it's fun to find street names that make you think of your own content and then kind of be like, ooh, I'm gonna actually think about that a little bit harder. That is all I have for today. Thank you for listening, and I hope to see you tomorrow.